Welcome back to Security Token Show interviews. This week, we are joined by both Balcony and Ava Labs with very, very exciting news that we covered last week, which is the fact that New Jersey's Bergen County is bringing on $240 billion worth of real estate deeds, all on chain, specifically Avalanche, through Balcony's platform. But before we dive into all of it, gentlemen, how are we today?
Good. Thanks for having me. Doing
well. Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. So with this news, we're talking about deeds, right? Tell me a little bit about why deeds. What's the value proposition for putting deeds on chain? I feel like we've seen a lot of fractional real estate, equity into certain projects, whether commercial or residential. You guys are doing full on deeds. Tell us a little bit about the thought process on this.
Yeah, so ownership is obviously very important in real estate, and the way we've always looked at it is that the deed is a piece of paper, a flimsy piece of paper that proves ownership of your most valuable asset, but it could be ripped off. People create fake deeds all the time. People commit deed fraud, mortgage fraud, and there's no real way to actually authenticate the validity of this document, or at least it's difficult to without it being on the blockchain. The blockchain provides a way for direct document issuance from the government on chain on a distributed ledger that you could trace back to the origin. So we always felt that, if we're going to look to tokenize real estate in a different way than fractionalization, that's a lot of people entering the space now are very focused on security token offerings. We're focused on step one, tokenizing the asset as a whole before you fractionalize it, and validating ownership of it, and getting the governments on board is a critical piece of that. So we've always felt that the deed and the work that we're going to do with Bergen County and at the county clerk's office is extremely important to foster a world where everybody can trust this and believe the validity of ownership of an asset. And with the rise in AI, fraudulent documents could be fabricated instantly that are completely indistinguishable from the real thing. So we actually believe that cases of deed fraud are on the rise. They'll continue to rise until something is done to prevent it.
Makes sense. And what would be some of the information that lives on chain? Is it just the record of who owns that specific, property, or is there metadata attached to it? What can people find on chain now?
We're trying to bring in everything, all associated documents. So what we've developed is this novel NFT protocol that allows us to tokenize an entire capital asset as a whole, and then also tokenize the associated documents and let them live within that overarching NFT. So you could think of it as a digital vault. We're creating a digital replica of the asset itself, and then encapsulating all the attributes of that asset. So, the reason that we've chosen an NFT to represent a real estate property is because real estate is non-fungible. Every deal is unique based on the different attributes that make it unique. So you need to tokenize it with a proper wrapper first. And then you also need to encapsulate all the information that's associated with it with true provenance of where that information came from. So if you see the deed that's been issued from the county, you know that it's accurate. If you see tax assessment information that was actually issued by the tax assessor, you know exactly where it came from, and so on.
Makes sense. I do want to dive into some more of that, but before so, we have the other side of the conversation here, which is the blockchain you're building on, Avalanche. Eric, tell us a little bit about why you feel Balcony and Avalanche have a natural fit here, how that conversation came about, and tell us a little bit about maybe like the level of involvement Avalanche has in like support versus Balcony mostly building on the chain itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So we met the Balcony team, I believe it was like at least at this point 3 years ago. And they were looking for a chain to call home. And one thing that stood out, I believe, for the Balcony team in particular, is that because they were working with sensitive information and with government entities, they needed a chain where they can basically customize rule sets to meet those specifications. So on Avalanche, obviously, you can build your own custom app chains. We call them Avalanche L1s, and that's exactly what Balcony did. And throughout the process, I would say our involvement and our support has more so been on the technical side, helping them to build a L1 is a non-trivial effort. It's much, there's much more that goes into it than just deploying a dApp, for example, on the C chain, which is the public permissionless chain on Avalanche. So a team within Avalanche called Alva Cloud that has done almost 100 of these custom L1 deployments helped Balcony throughout the process there. And then I would say where the Balcony team really shines is on the BD front, right? liaising with these government officials, different counties, municipals, and that's where I would say, like, us as a blockchain software provider, right? We're less equipped to do. So overall, it's been an extremely fruitful partnership between us.
Very cool. And you kind of touched on my next question, but I do want to dive deeper into how you guys are balancing transparency with privacy. Obviously, this is people's homes that you're representing, right? And government access as well. So curious maybe on like different levels of rules or who's allowed to see some of this stuff. If anyone can just hop in and check it out. And of course, we've seen this in the past with like the subnets or now L1s, right? Where you can move over to the public chain or the full public operational chain, right? But yeah, how are you guys balancing the privacy aspect of this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So from the beginning, Avalanche L1s were meant to be fully customizable at every level, right, in terms of permissioning. So you can actually permission at the chain level as to who has access to the underlying blockchain, both as a developer, validator, and user. So that was really important. But as we started having more conversations over the years, it became apparent for certain use cases, right? Government use cases, payments with traditional fintechs, they really needed a custom privacy solution. So we actually went out and acquired a company that did ZK/homomorphic encryption. This was about maybe 2 years ago. And since then, we've taken a lot of effort, right, rolling them into the Avalanche Cloud stack. And then from our standpoint, so what came out of there were 2 products so far. One is ERC, which is a new token standard for private transactions. And then the other is AvaC, which we announced at the Avalanche Summit 2 weeks ago. That's a whole privacy suite for new app chain builders. So, and the benefit to Balcony is also because they're on their own Avalanche L1, right? All of this is customizable. They can be built into the chain from day one. So we're excited to continue rolling out these products, and I think they'll really push Avalanche as being the preferred blockchain for a lot of these government use cases.
Awesome. Before we move on, for anyone that's watching as a part of the Security Token Show, we will be moving on to the next section of the show. But if you want to watch the full interview, we will have it available on our YouTube channel at STM TV Official. With that, next section of the show. Otherwise, diving in, if you're watching the full interview right now, I do want to ask about other projects that we've seen, right? We saw Avalanche also be a part of the DMV over in California, putting in, I think, 42 million car titles, I believe. Is this something where Avalanche, you guys are pushing for more government contracts or public sector deals in your pipeline? What kind of insight can you give us into what might be coming on Avalanche?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, one of the first deals we worked on Avalanche, this was all the way back in 2021, was a collaboration between us, Deloitte, and FEMA to automate disaster relief payments. So since then, we've reached out to governments around the world, not just in the U.S., but sovereigns as well as different levels of government, right? Whether it's nationwide, central banks, for instance, or different provinces, municipals within those countries, and make sure that if they're looking at a blockchain-based use case, right, we're at least in the discussion. In the U.S., obviously, we're continuing efforts here. With the new administration, things have gotten a little bit easier. The most recent announcement we have made was regarding the Wyoming Stablecoin Commission initiative. Avalanche was selected as one of the first chains they're deploying on. They were able to leverage an interop solution to bring those tokens back and forth, right, between different public blockchains. And then now they're also exploring using the Avalanche Cloud privacy suite to make some of those transactions also private. So we're exploring all these all sorts of government use cases at different levels, and for us, it's going to be a pillar when it comes to blockchain adoption. No doubt,
we'll be tracking all of it here on the show and our newsletters and so forth. So we're definitely keeping an eye on you guys. Back to Balcony team. Similar question for you guys. Are you guys kind of like courting other land registries? What does your pipeline look like? Or is this more like a proof of concept? Curious, maybe Alex, shine a little bit of light on like other things that you guys have worked on too.
For sure. We're under the impression that every county in America needs to have a blockchain backend and a blockchain indexer based upon, property records. We feel that our system is really built for counties, and it's really built for the automation of a very arduous process that is real estate. So we have plans to take this across the country. Outside of counties, we also support local municipalities. a really good use case that we did was in the city of Orange. So most cities that have a certain number of population have a lot of paper in their offices, and sometimes their systems are siloed, which leaves the ability for things to fall through the cracks, not by the effort of the employees, just their technology doesn't give them observability of their data sets. So we were able to come in and we created a unified system of real estate, which doesn't exist today. And we identified over $1 million of lost fine revenue over the past 3 years related to inspections when you move out or when you sell a property. We think that's prevalent across the country, where like government systems are older than me. I'm a 90s baby, and a lot of the technology was built in the 80s and 70s, which we think is super inefficient. So we're trying to add value where we possibly can.
Makes sense. And on that value, I think you said you found $1 million, right? Lost revenue. Do you guys get a cut from the recovered funds, or what other hidden treasures have you guys found in other applications, or what do you think you can find in future ones?
I mean, the best thing possible is potentially saving jobs from people, right? Like a lot of governments are cash strapped. And if we're able to save one person's job, that's a really big value add that I'm sure all of us could, like to have. As far as other things that we're finding, it really depends on the area and the type of city. Like urban cities have different problems than suburban cities. More rural cities have, not as many code enforcement, problems, but they do have that data standardization and data cleansing issue. Things are just built on older rails, which has that consequence, and that's where we come into play.
And speaking of older rails, maybe for Dan, are you worried about traditional title companies like First American and others fighting back with their own blockchain initiatives, or adapting to you guys? Like, what do you see the future of that like from a competitor standpoint?
We want to be collaborative with them. We're not trying to replace title companies. Definitely want to make that clear. We want to make it actually easier for them to trace title, so there's less discrepancies. You're always going to need title companies, at least for the foreseeable future. All the records that we put on chain, for like historical records, still need to be validated. When in the future, as deeds get recorded instantaneously in real time, it becomes much easier to validate those transactions, but there's like a 60-year look back, and you have to be able to trace that information or that change of ownership back that long. So we think that the title companies that embrace blockchain will be around forever. The ones that don't embrace blockchain will potentially, fade away. So it's really about us working together with them to embrace the technology as a whole, and then nobody has to be replaced.
It makes sense, right? It's gonna kind of like for those companies at least, and same thing goes for traditional institutions. The question is always, are you gonna buy, build, or lease? In this case, it sounds maybe the lease operation here. Awesome, guys. As we wrap it up, I did want to ask as well. I love what you guys are doing. There's a lot of what we have been preaching as well in terms of how fast we can add real existing value onto the blockchain rather than made up stuff, which of course other applications have their fortes. But there is a challenge, I'm sure, in bringing on other counties, other municipalities, getting everyone on board in terms of kind of maybe standardization and so forth. So how are you guys approaching that from either an educational standpoint or from execution on your end?
No, that's a phenomenal question. I mean, every state has their own route to reach that stakeholder, and every state has a different way of executing contracts. What is consistent is real estate, right? Like we are supporting county governments that oversee real estate, and that's consistent no matter if in New Jersey or Wyoming. The benefit of us scaling in the county clerk's offices is that most county clerk's offices operate very similarly. So, the overall talk track and the use case is what really sells. We don't have to put lipstick on a pig, right? Like we have great technology and we're providing real value to folks. And once we talk to people about the value that we provide, it's really apparent where our system fits into their overall technology stack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as we progress with Bergen County, like all eyes are on Bergen. They want to see how this goes. Bergen's the largest county in the state of New Jersey, and we've spoken to several other counties, and we've actually had other counties in New Jersey reach out to us in the last week after hearing the news. So we think that as just mass adoption across the country happens, people will look to this use case and this case study to inform their decisions. And as we scale beyond New Jersey, we're looking to states that specifically actually have shown interest in blockchain solutions where there's not as much of an educational component required, because that takes time if we need to start from scratch educating them. And then over time, you know, as more states start to adopt it, more counties start to adopt it, the world will be fully ready, and, you know, the rest of the country will understand it at that point, and we'll be able to, you know, scale across the country and across the globe. Honestly, the funny thing is, like, most countries outside of the U.S. are in much more disarray than the United States is. So to give you an example, like, we spent some time in Puerto Rico early on, and we learned that hurricane that happened in 2019 wiped away all their land records because they were all in paper. So there's land disputes all the time. So, you know, this is a worldwide problem.
100%. Yeah, no, I can see so many applications for this. It's crazy. And also in like other countries where there is no registry at all, it's gonna go for it, right? So cool. Eric, on your end for Avalanche, is there going to be a scalability issue or not really? Once, you know, the deeds all over the place come on chain as well.
No, I don't think so. Right now, I think we're just like testing waters really on, you know, what the upper limit is, right? One of our actually these types of use cases will have, I would say, lower velocity than some others, right? Prime example of that is gaming. Right now, MapleStory doing $500,000, $1 million, even multiple millions of transactions a day, right? So I think we'll have to probably sign up the rest of the U.S. before we see that upper limit. But that's going to be a good problem to have.
Absolutely, a champagne problem. Awesome, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Anyone watching, make sure to check them out, keep up with us, subscribe on YouTube. And other than that, once again, share it to whoever you think this might be applicable to. Alex, Eric, Dan, thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate your time.
Take care.